Really think that surprised God? Hey everybody, welcome to The Whole Truth, where I am taking you through the entire Bible from Genesis all the way to Revelation, and we are not skipping anything. So if that sounds good to you, make sure that you reach down, hit the little subscribe button below, and then go over to thewholetruthbiblestudy.com and you'll find all of these videos in one convenient location. Plus there's ways to support the channel. All the short videos are over there from the Instagram post, and there's Bible studies over there. It's a growing website, and it kind of leads me into my story a little bit today and the point of what we're getting into, which is that website. I'm just one guy building a website. I'm just one guy making these videos. I've had some of you ask me on Instagram and even here on YouTube, and you'll say to me, do you have a manager, or am I talking to a publicist or whatever? But the truth is, I don't have a publisher or publicist, and I don't have a manager, don't have any of that. I'm just a guy with a camera and a mission, and that mission started in January 1 of 2020. And I'm telling you that because today, when this video is posting, it's January 1 of 2024. And here's the deal. Why has it taken me so long to get from Genesis through now into the book of Deuteronomy? And the truth is because there was tragedy in my life. Some of you know that, some of you maybe don't. Maybe you're new to that. But in 2020, I started this channel to teach through the entire Bible. And about halfway through the year, my wife got sick. She was diagnosed with cancer, and it rocked my world. And I've not given up on this mission or this calling that God's put on me to teach through the entire Bible. But being, dealing with my wife as I say dealing with, I don't mean it like that, caring for her. I got to care for her at the end of her life, and I'm thankful for that time. But that was a tough time. That was hard, going through that, and then her passing and becoming a solo parent and just learning how to do life on my own. It's just eaten into the time of this. And here's the reason I tell you that story again today. Because I'm asking you the question, do you think God was surprised by what I went through? And I want you to think about that in your own life, but also as we read this story of Deuteronomy chapter 2. And we're going to start in verse 24. So most important thing today, go get your Bible and open it to Deuteronomy chapter 2 and verse 24. Rise, take your journey and cross over the river Arnon. Look, I have given into your hand Sihon, the Amorite king of Heshbon, and his land. Begin to possess it and engage him in battle. This day I will begin to put the dread and fear of you upon the nations under the whole heaven, who shall hear the report of you and shall tremble and be in anguish because of you. Let's pause today. Let's, instead of reading the whole thing all at once, let's read a little and then talk a little. And so here's King of Sihon. He's in the way of Israel going to the promised land. Now Moses is retelling this story about what happened, really honestly, even for these people that he's talking to, about how Sihon, the king of Heshbon, had the Amorite king, he had been in their way, and how he had refused to let them through. And that whole thing started with Sihon refusing to let the Israelite people through. It all started with God telling Moses, go into battle against him. Now, why would God tell Moses to go into battle? Why wouldn't God come up with another way? Couldn't there be another way besides going into this battle? Do you think that Moses and the Israelite people really wanted to go into battle? Well, probably not. But here's the question. Could there be another way? If God says go into battle, could there be another way? Well, let's look. Let's look what happens. This is what Moses does. So this is now verse 26. And I sent messengers from the wilderness of Kedemoth to Sihon, king of Heshbon, with words of peace. Do you see that? God told Moses to go in and battle, take their land. You're going to begin to possess it. Moses sends in words of peace and says, hey, let us come in peace. Let's read this. He says, with words of peace, let me pass through your land, and I will keep strictly to the road. And I will turn neither to the right nor to the left, and you shall sell me food for money, and that I may eat, and give me water for money that I may drink. Only let me pass through on foot, just as the descendants of Esau who dwelled in Seir, and the Moabites who dwell in Ar did for me, until I crossed the Jordan and to the land which the Lord our God is giving us. But Sihon, king of Heshbon, would not let us pass through, for the Lord your God hardened his spirit and made his heart obstinate, that he might deliver him into your hand as it is this day. Okay, so Moses says, let us go through in peace. We'll buy food. You'll make money off of us. We'll buy your food. We won't take your food. We'll buy it. Even your water. This is like bottled water, but back in the ancient days, says we'll even pay for the water that we use. Just let us pass through in peace. And by the way, we've already done this with 2 other kings. We have testimony to say we did this at Seir, we did this at Ar, where we passed through and we didn't harm anybody, and we bought food from them and bought water from them. But God hardened Sihon's heart. Why in the world would God harden his heart? Why wouldn't God let them pass through in peace? Well, there's 2 things that you have to understand about why God didn't let them pass through in peace. Understand this. Firstly, let's just start off with this, because we're always bothered by this part and then the next part. We're always bothered by this in our culture today. But here's the truth. God had told Moses, go in and go to battle with these people and begin to possess their land. God was giving that land where this Amorite king and his people, Sihon and Heshbon was, and Sihon the king was king there. And God says, I'm giving you that land as a possession. Moses tried to go through in peace, but God hardened his heart. Why? Why would God harden his heart? Well, it's not like God took a good king and made him into a bad king. I think that's the thing that will help you to understand this. It's not like Sihon was like this good king and like everybody's, sitting around playing Good King Wenceslas and, that song like Good King Wenceslas. I don't know the words, but you know what I'm talking about, like that Christmas song. It's not like he was this good king who's, doing good with his people and they're just righteous and good and nice and sweet and kind people. That's not it. What we see as God took this land from these people is that these were wicked kings or wicked people who were doing wicked things, and God had said, I'm going to take your land. God did not just have a plan for Israel, but he had a plan for everybody. And when nations were doing wrong and evil, God corrected that. And that is exactly what he did with Sihon, king of Heshbon. He was taking the land from Sihon and he was going to give it to another people, and he was going to give it to Israel. So one of the reasons that God hardened his heart is because this was the punishment for Sihon. And we'll see that in some subsequent chapters as we get there. I can't stay there for too much longer today. So understand, he was already a bad king. He wasn't taken from good to bad when God hardened his heart. He was already doing bad and already doing wrong with his people, and God was punishing him by taking him out of the way. And so God hardened his heart, and God was punishing the people for the things that they were doing. So you just have to understand that that's where it is. And the second part of it is that for them to go through in peace, Israel wouldn't get to possess the land. So there's the punishment side on Heshbon and Sihon, their king, but there's also the side that says for Israel to possess the land, then these people have to be out of there. So God had to do this for 2 reasons. 1, to punish Heshbon, but 2, to bless Israel. Those 2 things had to happen because of those 2 things that God had them go in to this battle. And so when Moses tried to pass through in peace, God said, no. Now, I ask you this question again. Was God surprised by the battle? No, God wasn't surprised by the battle. As a matter of fact, God was going to use the battle. Do you remember what he said right here in the text today? Remember what he said? Because I'm going to put the fear and the dread of you upon all those under heaven who hear about it, who have to face you. There's only one way that Israel's going to go in and take the promised land, and that is that the people who are there are going to have to fear and tremble the name of the Lord when they hear that his people are coming. And that's exactly what God was using Heshbon for, and their king Sihon. He had to harden his heart. So he did. He hardened his heart to do what he had told them to do, what he had told Israel to do in the first place. Well, let's read on in the rest of the story. So now I'm picking up in verse 31. And the Lord said to me, see, I have begun to give Sihon and his land over to you. Begin to possess it, that you may inherit his land. Then Sihon and all his people came out against us to fight at Jahaz. And the Lord our God delivered him over to us. So we defeated him, his sons, and all his people. We took all his cities at that time, and we utterly destroyed the men, women, and little ones of the city. Of every city, we left none remaining. We took only the livestock as plunder for ourselves, with the spoil of the cities which we took from Aroer, that's hard to say, which is on the bank of the river Arnon, and from the city that is in the ravine as far as Gilead. There was not one city too strong for us. The Lord our God delivered all of us, only you did not go near the land of which the people of Ammon, anywhere along the river Jabbok, or the cities of the mountains, or wherever the Lord our God had forbidden us. So God sent them into battle. He told them to go, and he is making good on that. They're going to go into this battle, and they did. They went into the battle, and did you notice that no city was able to overtake them? This is a nomadic people, a people that were not equipped for war. They were not a warring people yet, and yet they were able to win this battle against an established king and established cities. Why? Because God was on their side. They weren't going to be able to possess the land unless they went in for this battle and they defeated these people. The dread and fear of the name of the Lord would not be upon the people in the promised land, in the land of Canaan, unless they had won this battle. God needed them to win this battle to move them forward. Is it what they wanted? Well, no. Nobody wants to go through the battles, but God uses those battles. And that's my point of what I'm trying to express to you today, is that God uses the battles that we're going through, even though we may want peace. We may not want to go through these things. So I'm going to go back to my story of myself. You know, God really used what happened with my wife and her cancer and her passing. And in many, many ways, he has trained me and taught me and equipped me in ways that I could have never done, ways that it would have never worked unless I had experienced what I experienced. And so if you had given me the choice and said, Justin, will you go through these things? No, I would have been like, no way, I don't want to go through that. But God took me through those battles. He took me through those valleys, and he was with me every step of the way. And even though I know I get the mean comments, I hear them, I see them. You say, what are the mean comments? Let me give you one of them. There was a family that I know that had a family member who was sick. And I said, would you like us to pray for them? And they denied that. Do you know why they denied it? Because they pointed back at my wife and they said, well, you prayed for your wife and she didn't make it. That's a mean comment. But I'll tell you this, the Lord changed me and worked in me in a new way through all the things that my wife went through. And so even in that, I have a different outlook. I have a different outlook on those who are suffering. I have a different outlook on those who are going through pain. I have a different outlook on those who are experiencing grief. It's not like I was unkind before, but God worked in me in a new way and in a different way. He's put a new outlook in my life, just about the brevity of life and dealing with those who are suffering and who are hurting. He's put a new outlook in me. He's put a new vision. He's given me new eyes. And that's only one. That's only one of many. I could tell you more stories. I could tell you stories about how God has used, since the passing of my wife, 2 years running for a 12-month period in the year 2022 and now here in 2023. Both years, myself and the church that I pastor have baptized more people each year for the past 2 years running than we did for 11 years of ministry combined before. And really, even not just 11 years of ministry combined, but you could include all my years of youth ministry, 7 years of youth ministry in there, making 18 years of ministry combined. Did not baptize as many people as we did in 2022. And then we did it again in 2023. I'm amazed by that. By watching as the Lord has, week after week, as people give their hearts to the Lord. We do this thing at church now where we have open baptisms. We just filled the tub up with water and say, if you want to come, we brought extra clothes and extra towels. If you want to come be baptized, come do it. And I think the Lord's going to do even more with that. I'm waiting as he's doing even more. And so I'm really just amazed to watch as the Lord has worked in me and given me new eyes. And so did I want to go through the battle? No. Did I like doing what I did? I didn't really address this today too much because we've talked about it in other videos, but you get to that part where God tells them to take everybody, kill everybody, and that's a hard thing. War is a hard thing. And I think that Israel Moses proved they don't really want that. They don't want to go through that, but it's something that sometimes they have to go through. And God's not surprised. Was God surprised when my wife's cancer didn't shrink? Was he surprised when she passed away? No, I was surprised by those things, but God was working and moving in my life. And so I ask you this question today as we close out. Are you allowing God to work and move in your life? Are you accepting of the fact that the battles that you're facing, the trials, the tribulation, the people, the giants, whatever it might be that's in your way, are you accepting of the fact that God has you where he needs you and is working in you, and he can and will work this out for your good? Would you put your faith in him today? I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I hope you come back tomorrow as we get into Deuteronomy chapter 3. I'll see you then.